Hey Jess, what are we going to do today?
I'm gonna make a YouTube video.
Yeah, but what kind?
Dunno.
How about how to do a rap battle like Carol Shannon? I want to.
I couldn't do that.
How about how to sit on the chair like Jonathan Frakes?
Maybe some other time. Oh, I know. It's gonna be...
Blocking your pet human with Gizmo.
Hello, everyone. Jess here. I bet you're wondering why this episode of Fill in the Blank with Jess is called Walking Your Pet Human with Gizmo, but I'm the one talking. Allow me to explain. Dogs don't talk. So, unless you want to listen to Gizmo bark for 15 to 20 minutes, which he's perfectly willing to do as long as you show him his own reflection, you're stuck with me. That doesn't mean Gizmo doesn't play a big part in this episode. He does. He's the star. On paper, Gizmo is my mom's dog. But if you ask him, he'd say he's my dad's dog. Well, unless it's time to go poop, then who does he look for? Me. I don't know why. I'm incredibly lazy. How lazy? Well, so lazy that in 1994, the International Procrastination League gave a gold medal to John Darrell Hastings of Gravity, Iowa, for being the greatest procrastinator of all time. 7 years later, they got around to sending out his trophy. Last week, on the 27th anniversary of the disbanding of the league itself, I spoke up and said, it should have been me. The former league president said I was the only competitor who never turned in his application to get the trophy, reward money, and big sponsorship deals from Crystal Pepsi. I sighed. I was going to get to that. Eventually. He rolled his eyes. I asked him if the other contestants had filled out their paperwork. The judge said, "Yep." So I turned and shouted, "Ha! That just exposes Hastings for the rank amateur he is!" And I'm so much better at it than he is. Suffice to say, even before quarantine, I wasn't exactly the kind of person who enjoyed getting exercise. My point is that there's a reason people who have a dog get more exercise than people who don't, and that is they have a dog. If you don't walk your dog 2 to 3 times a day, your house will fill up with something that smells like rotten eggs, but looks like a Tootsie Roll. Having a dog doesn't give you the option of sitting there and watching TV. If you didn't have a dog, you could just lay there and watch Futurama reruns for the 50th time, or get an extra half hour of sleep. If your dog didn't have you, he'd be dropping a deuce wherever he felt like. Thus, you are not walking the dog. The dog is taking you for a walk. They choose the time, they set the course. So, how do you let your dog walk you? First, start by keeping track of when they poop in the house. This can be hard. My family has this pad of astroturf that's designed for dogs to poop on. We got it for housebreaking our previous dog, Mindy. But it didn't work for her. She avoided it. When she had to poop in the house, she preferred to go under the dining room table. Gizmo, on the other hand, prefers right between these two chairs, and he doesn't care if people are there to watch him. Whenever Matt is over for dinner, he and I sit here, and if Gizmo still hasn't pooped for the night, and in spite of having gone out, he'll take a dump right in front of us. Dogs are, if anything, creatures of habit. That's another reason you might want to figure out when they poop in the house. Remember how I said that dogs are creatures of habit? Well, if you find that they consistently poop in the house around 3 p.m., that tells you that might be a good time to take your dog for a walk. Gizmo usually needs to make number 1 and number 2 early in the morning. You usually need to take a piss and sometimes a dump around 2:30 in the afternoon. He acts all sweet and innocent like he doesn't need to make a big chunk of brown gold right before dinner time. Of course, we don't believe him, or at least I don't. So, before I eat, he goes out. Once you figure out the schedule your dog follows, how do you get ready for the walk? Well, just like a lot of things we do on this show, you need some stuff. You'll need a dog harness, a leash, some sample collection bags, or good old TP, your handy dandy PPE, and last but not least, a dog. Gizmo here isn't quite housebroken, which adds another wrinkle. In this case, we might need a bag of dog treats. Oh, and Gizmo isn't exactly good about going outside. In the morning, he'll sort of let me go downstairs, get my gear, and put his harness on. But only because he really has to go. But he won't like it. But he needs to go so badly that he'll at least try to be good. And he's better than he used to be. Of course, he used to bust out of his harness and run home. And he hasn't done that in, 2 weeks now? I know what you might be thinking. Dogs love going outside. What is the matter with Gizmo? Well, he's kind of agoraphobic. We got him last June. We couldn't really walk him much during the pandemic, so we didn't really get the chance to go out as a really small pup. Thus, he hates going outside. Well, he likes it if there are no cars, no neighbors, no squirrels, no birds, no cats, and especially no other dogs. He lets maybe 3 people walk him. Me, my dad, and Matt. And even then, I have to be close by for Matt to be allowed to do it. And for the record, Gizmo doesn't dislike Matt. Far from it. Of the few visitors to our home, he's probably his favorite. He thinks Matt is part of his pack. Of course, he's over here helping me with errands and stuff that my mom can't do because of the pandemic, that the rest of the family treats him that way too. But in the afternoon, if he's not up in my dad's room, he'll hide from me. So, on top of getting the exercise of taking him for a walk, I'll get a little extra, since I'll have to chase him around the house in order to get him to take a walk in the first place. That's just the easy part. How do we teach him what the outside is for? Most dogs use outside for lots of things. It's a place for them to play, or where they can be social with your neighbors, or more than likely, your neighbor's dogs. They might chase cats or squirrels. Much like Charlie Brown, I find myself shouting, "Why can't I have a normal dog like everybody else?" In terms of housebreaking, remember those dog treats I mentioned earlier? I said they'd come in handy at some point. Here's how. Once you get out into the yard, your dog is going to wander around and sniff stuff, just to make sure nothing big has happened since the last time you went out. Unless it rained or something, that's probably going to be the case. But once they find one of their spots, they'll do their business. For whatever reason, dogs seem to be particular about points of defecation. Usually a spot near a tree, a mailbox, or a fire hydrant. Then again, most humans are particular about that as well. Most of us only like to take a dump on a toilet in the bathroom. Not all of us, though. I might know a guy who used to carry around big 4-liter bottles of lime Gatorade in the back of his car just in case he had to piss. And he might have gotten into the habit of not dumping it until it was full. And it just so happens that he was driving along the highway when his beat-up Toyota Corolla broke down. He might have gotten out of his car to look for a payphone or an emergency call box. By the time he got back, somebody might have stolen his car. And he might have somehow gotten it back. But when he did, the lid to that bottle was a little bit looser than it should have been, and its contents a little more empty. And this guy, if the story was true, and I'm not saying that it is, just might have been my dad. Confidentially speaking, of course. Anyway, as you walk along, your dog might, water the grass. At least until they are housebroken, you give them a little treat like this. See? Come here, come here. Good boy, Gizmo. But we're not done. You should keep going until they, get all the snow or leave their candy egg behind, if you know what I mean. But what do you do if your dog drops a load? That's where the plastic bags or TP come into play. You take a bag or toilet paper, you make a glove, and then you scoop it up. If they aren't housebroken, then you go into your treat bag and you give them another treat. Isn't that right, Gizmo? Speaking of dogs taking a dump, there's been a weird scientific discovery on that front. Scientists in Germany have taken 70 dogs of about 35 different breeds and found they like to relieve themselves along the north-south axis. Somehow a dog can sense Earth's magnetic pole. They'll go out of their way to avoid peeing and pooping from east to west. No one's sure why or what sort of evolutionary advantage this would bring. It's just one of those things we can't explain. Like circus peanuts or the underwear on the outside of Superman's clothes. Yeah, I know the study was short term and the sample size was a little limited, but they observed over 6,000 trips to the dog park. And they revealed the methodology they used. The experiment is pretty easy to replicate. Many people have, including me. And I know my sample size is even smaller, limited to one dog. But I've observed Gizmo make 123 fudge bricks, 122 of which were made pointing north to south. The other one would have been, but a cat snuck up on him and he was so scared that he ran away before the missile left the silo. Of course, that's not the only time you might want to give a dog a treat on their walk. There are plenty of other behaviors you might want to encourage them to do while outside. It's the best way to teach them. With Gizmo, I don't want him to be shy around most of our neighbors. So if he's willing to not be a coward or bust out of his harness, I'll give him one. Or I would, but most of the people I don't want him to be afraid of are children. By the time I got to the treat bag, one of them would ask, "Can I give it to him?" I used to say no, but I found that he wasn't getting the point that these kids don't want to hurt you. When I switched to letting the kids do it, he figured it out. In fact, now I don't often have to give him the treats. In fact, he's happy to see them. He knows they're just going to pet him and rub his belly. Or I would, but most of the people I don't want him to be afraid of are children. By the time I get to a treat bag, one of them will ask, "Can I give it to him?" I used to say no, but found he wasn't getting the point that these kids don't want to hurt you. When I switched over to letting the kids do it, he figured it out. Now, he's happy to see them. He knows they're just going to pet him and rub his belly. He's still a little bit afraid of certain kids, but I'm working on it. Once he's done his thing, there are two ways you can go about things. With Gizmo, if he's gone both ways, that's it. He wants to go inside. Occasionally, he'll want to stay out a little longer, but only if those kids I mentioned before are out. And even then, only for a few minutes. But that's not the only care your dog needs. See, as I said, Gizmo tends to hate outside. So I often have to apologize for taking him out. So first, I'll turn on my Bluetooth tower and I'll put on a YouTube video or a podcast. I go to my favorite chair downstairs and make my apology. And for that, I need, you guessed it, even more equipment. In this case, it's simple. I just need to find the most valuable thing in the universe, the green roller beast. Or as you might call it, a tennis ball. I pick up the ball and throw it. Gizmo goes chasing after it. Then, more often than not, he'll bring it back. Eventually, he'll either get so excited that he does this, or he gets bored, or distracted by something else, or my dad has breakfast ready for him. Then all is forgiven. And now, because he loved them, are some more candid scenes with Gizmo. like this video, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to really see this channel grow, visit patreon.com/parodyerrorfilms and become a patron. Gizmo will lick you if you do.